Okay, we are getting ready to start the next session, which is with UserGems. UserGems, if you're not familiar, is an AI platform that helps sales and marketing teams double their pipeline impact with the same team already in place. Their AI agent, Gemi, captures buying signals and your CRM data to identify who to target, when, and why, and drafts highly personalized and impactful outreach that results in higher conversions. I actually got a chance to see this last week. Really exciting stuff. UserGems has generated $4 billion in pipeline and over $950 million in revenue for hundreds of startups and public companies. Companies like Mimecast, User Testing, SAP, LeanIX, all of them have seen more than a 15x ROI in close one revenue from using UserGems. So to present their product today is Anna Glassman, Senior Account Executive at UserGems. Anna, welcome to the stage.
Thank you, Drew. I'm happy to be here. All right, let me
Awesome.
go into sharing my screen, and we're going to talk about the world of UserGems. And going off what Drew mentioned, I am a senior account executive here at UserGems, but I'm also a foster dog mom and cat mom during the day and night. So anybody interested in adoption, definitely let me know. But we're getting down to the nitty gritty. We're going to talk about how UserGems has supported the change that we've seen in outbound and ways we can help you all drive revenue by leveraging signals and AI to prioritize who to target, when to reach out, and with a compelling reason. So now I'm going to get into showing you how. Most revenue teams that we all talk to are being asked to hit higher targets. So a lot of the times companies that commonly had one SDR supporting two AEs now are being asked to have SDRs increase their output by about 50%, and they're being asked to support 3 or more AEs. So the big question is how? If you guys look at the typical day in the life of an SDR, there are typically 4 main points. We first see that they spend time building lists of accounts and prospects to target. Then they go into researching which leads to prioritize. Then they go into drafting sequences and messaging for them. The actual portion where they engage with prospects by making calls, sending emails, engaging on LinkedIn, that is the last stage, and that's where you see the pink zone on the screen. And this is where the actual meetings happen. So the big question is, how do we get your SDRs engaging with 50% more prospects without asking them to work 4 more hours in the day and become extraordinary workaholics? So our customers came to us asking for AI agents, and we call our AI agent Gemi. Gemi works 24/7, handling all of those front-end tasks, repetitive tasks like list building, research and prioritization, and even drafting of sequences. And then from there, your reps are able to focus on the actual human touch or that last mile editing, making calls, making calls and visiting prospects. And that's where your reps are able to spend the majority of the day. This means if an SDR could previously work 1,000 leads a month, they can now work 1,500, and they can do it a whole lot more thoughtfully. To give you guys a high-level overview of how this happens, I'm going to dive into the 3 core processes that Gemi employs. So the first step is building fresh lists of accounts and leads that you should target. Step number 2 is researching signals and ranking prospects. And I want to pause here and really emphasize that building and researching or ranking is really where UserGems shines because of our data set. Our data set is proprietary, and we know that the quality of AI outputs is primarily determined by the data that it's built on. And then in step 3, that's where the functionality focuses on drafting personalized messages and talk tracks for each prospect. So diving into these steps with a little bit more detail, let's talk about step 1, which is all about targeting the right accounts and leads. Now, if you guys don't point the spear in the right direction, truly nothing else matters. So in step 3, GemE will first learn from the past by analyzing all of your historical data, like who's bought from you before, who's evaluating you now. And then she'll use this information to decide what your ideal buyer looks like. Now you'll have a perfect up-to-date list built from scratch. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. This is truly really important because the quality of AI outputs is entirely dependent on the data that it's built off of. And I would say this is probably GemE's biggest differentiator. She has exclusive access to UserGems dataset, which is objectively proven to be the most accurate data on the market across over 100 head-to-head comparisons that we've done. Now let's transition briefly into the UI so you guys can take a look at what data GemE is built off of to find your best accounts and leads for your team. So jumping quickly into the UI, when you set up UserGems, we start by identifying the closed won opportunity contacts or contact types that are important to your team. Most folks are prioritizing closed won op contacts because those are the people who have bought you once. They're likely to want to buy you again. But we also see our customers having tremendous success tracking other contact types like open opportunity contacts, closed loss op contacts, people that are familiar with your brand, have gone through a partial buying process, and are warmer than a totally net new contact. Other types of contacts we see people focusing on are users, power admins, people with high NPS scores as well. Now, once you identify the contact types that your team wants to focus on, that's where we drill into identifying your ideal buyer persona. And we do this based on the titles and seniority level of each person. And then we can also exclude titles that are unimportant to you, that you wouldn't want surfaced up to your team. From there, we want to make sure that the contacts GemE is finding for your team are contacts that land at companies you can actually sell back into. And that is where we define your ideal customer profile. Now, we can do this by scanning through your customer accounts and auto-generating an ICP for you based on historical data. Or we can set that up manually based on the 4 criteria you're seeing on your screen. 1 being number of employees, 2nd, industry, 3rd, regions, and then revenue. And a really nice feature here, if you guys are looking to find areas you can sell into that maybe you didn't think was a potential ICP fit for you, we can identify if any of your customers show anomalies. Maybe you have had success in industries that you were previously uncertain that would be a good fit for your team. We can help identify for that for your team to help from there expand your ICP. Moving back into the presentation, I think it's important to call out that the average rep spends 10 to 15 hours a week building lists of prospects. GemE completes all of that work for them. Now, once you define your targets, you'll want to find the right accounts and contacts that are most likely to buy from you right now. That brings us to part 2, which is all about prioritization. So there's 2 steps in this part. The first step is when GemE researches and captures signals that show your prospect a real reason to meet with you. She does this in 2 ways. So the first way is by looking externally at accounts and people level signals, like a past customer of yours landing at a new job, or a newly hired exec or promoted exec that is likely to spend 70% of their budget in the first 3 months on the job. So getting to them when they land there is incredibly important. Or she might identify website visitors or a company that went up for recent funding, or even competitors of your best customers. And then we've also realized that it's shocking how much of a gold mine you're probably sitting on already. So GemE will also look for internal signals like closed loss op accounts or even churned accounts that your reps have forgotten to re-engage with. And then from there, GemE will score and prioritize every account and lead so your rep spends time on the highest value, most time-sensitive people first. So let's jump back into the UI to take a look at how GemE scores your accounts and leads based on account level and people level signals. So moving back into the UI, what you'll see in this example is GemE has stack ranked a list of accounts and prospects based on the number of signals she's identified. So in this example, you'll see that DialPad is a target account and it's been given a 100% score by GemE. And that's based on the number of company level and people level signals that GemE has found and the fact that DialPad matches our ICP criteria. In this example, GemE has identified DialPad as a customer competitor of Genesis and has also identified 14 prospects and ranked them in order of priority. So in the first two examples, you'll notice that GemE has found 2 past closed one-op contacts who were past users of our product that could act as champions that would bring in the product at DialPad. We've also identified newly hired execs and net new contacts that we found through our multi-threading signal who fit your buyer persona. The nice thing here is all of this work is done for your team. So they're not having to spend hours and hours finding the right people to reach out to first. And what we've seen is most reps spend 20% of their day doing that research to find the contacts and accounts and prioritize them. But GemE does that for the team. Moving into part 3, which is my favorite part. 3 happens to be my favorite number. It's the number I had when I played softball. But more importantly, part 3 is my favorite part here at UserGems because this is where the fireworks happen. This is where your team is actually engaging with the leads. At this stage, GemE uses all of that previous research to draft and prepare messaging for email, LinkedIn messages, talk tracks, etc. And then in step 2 of this part, that's where the actual action takes place, where your rep makes last mile edits, hits send, dials the phones, and books meetings. Now, we do commonly recommend that humans handle this aspect in most cases, though GemE can automate emails on your behalf. And we see a lot of customers utilizing a autopilot methodology for lower level accounts that you know your team won't have the bandwidth to reach out to anyway in order to capture a few additional meetings. So let's jump into the UI just to see a couple of examples of the messaging GemE will create. And we're going to stick with our example from DialPad, one of our target accounts, and this example from Schlippa, the close one-op contact. Now you'll see that GemE's identified 4 other reasons to engage as important reasons for your team. And then based off of these business reasons to engage, she creates the messaging. So in this first example, GemE's thanking Schlippa for bringing us on at a previous company, mentioning the pains we solve for, and then hinting at the fact that a colleague of Schlippa's actually used us in the past and might be a good person to talk to maybe bring us on again at DialPad. Now you'll see the past champion signal was mentioned twice there. In email number 2, you'll see the customer competitor signals mentioned. Now I want to pause for a moment and explain why customer competitors are so interesting and such an important trigger to reach out to. We've found that if you mention a customer competitor in your messaging to that competitor, they're 2.5 times more likely to take a meeting with you. That's why this thoughtful signal-based messaging and prioritization is so important. So moving back to the example, you'll see that GemE is mentioning this signal of a customer competitor and saying, hey, maybe we can do the same thing for you. Moving back to our presentation, we're going to talk a little bit about outcomes here. This is really where you're going to see a major trickle-down effect because the current state of most outbound response rates are between about 1 and 4%, with a lot of the messaging back being something like unsubscribe or outright rejections, and please take me off your list. With SDRs focusing the bulk of their time on prospecting, the future looks incredibly different. So we see reply rates jump from 20 to 30%, where ideally as a VP of marketing or a CMO or a VP of sales, you're getting messages from prospects that look a little like this, saying something like, hey, kudos to your BDR for the thoughtful outreach. I really appreciated the research they did before reaching out. And this is not just a hypothetical example. This is a real message from a CMO at a customer account, sharing how the prospect proactively reached back out to them to thank them for their approach. Now, our earlier customers have already tried and churned a number of AI SDR tools. And here are a couple of examples of the feedback we've received. So in 30 days of go live, Casey from the SVP of marketing over at Sendoso saw a 1x ROI in 30 days, 47 new opportunities created, and a 20% reply rate. So this is a hypothetical question to you all, but think about what type of impact that would have on your team. Seriously, what type of impact would some of these results have on your team? Now, along with the exceptional AI outbound, we do have a white-gloved implementation and customer success team that will ensure your success, because we know you're super busy. And honestly, the last thing you need is to have to set up another tech tool. So our team is comprised of technical RevOps experts, implementation and success experts that take all of that weight off your shoulder, because they act as consultants and advisors to help you transition into a signal-based go-to-market strategy. And we're aware that you have high-level department goals that you need to hit. So we work towards measuring your success and adjusting as you move forward to make sure you're actually hitting those goals. Now, along with the absolute best customer success team I have ever seen in this space, and I'm not just biased, it's from previous experience, we also put our money where our mouth is, because we offer you a money back guarantee. So that means if you don't make back your investment in UserGems with UserGems sourced closed won opportunities, we cut you a check for the difference. That is truly how much we believe in the success of this product and have seen success. At this stage, I'm going to pass the mic over to Trinity to talk through a couple of use cases with GemE and UserGem signals.
Yes, I want to be mindful of time because I know we have less than 2 minutes. So I'm happy to connect on LinkedIn if you want to chat a little bit further. But I think for AI, there are a lot of ways we can use AI. I have a few slides, but since we don't have time, I'll just talk through it. So I think the first thing, like the quickest win we've seen using UserGems GemE is like the first one is just turn on the past champions play. I know this is the bread and butter of UserGems. If you know UserGems, everyone's aware of this playbook. Turn it on because GemE actually will amplify your past champions play a lot further. So if they join a new ICP account, GemE will draft messaging sequences for your reps and push them directly to your sales loft, outreach, gong engage. If it's an open op, GemE will send a Slack message to your AE that's owning that account with the pre-drafted messaging. So I think that's one. The second one is revive close lost. So everyone has a close lost nurture. What we would use GemE for is, so we have the nurture that's going on in the background, but if that close lost account has interesting signals, like a past champion's joining, they just got a new CRO or CMO, if they start visiting some of high value website visits, then immediately GemE will pick them out from the nurture. That usually the nurture got to wait for 6 months. So GemE will take them out of that nurture and add to a sequence immediately to engage with them while they're in that buying window. So that's the second use case. The third one that not a lot of people thinking about yet, but I really want marketers to start thinking about this one, is using AI for like event nurture. So we go into conferences this year. So typically you have pretty standard emails like, hey, we're going to be there, visit our booth. What if we use AI to bring in any relevant contacts and signals that's happening at that account? So like for us, in 2 weeks, we're going to Human X in Vegas and say, hey, we're going to be there. PS, so and so in your last at your company evaluated this last year. Do you want to talk to them before meeting with us? So kind of like making the event nurture a lot warmer, and therefore you increase the chance of meeting them and booking a meeting with them while they're at the conference. So I powered through. We're over time, so I'm going to stop. But feel free to reach out to us on LinkedIn, our website. Happy to answer more questions. Thank you all.